Welcome back to the second half of Give Me a Break. Later on, we're going to tell you a story about a girl who was at 13 was in juvenile hall for 11 days for a school threat she says she never made. But there's a twist to that story, and we'll tell you about it later. But first, months ago, we did a whole show about spanking. I gave you my take on why it's confusing to a child. I'm not going to go into that again, but we are dealing with corporal punishment in our schools. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it a good thing? Or a bad thing? Well, as far as you can recall, shaping their character, I don't approve of the spanking in our schools. An instance like that, there was a story that was in the headlines. If I can find it for you guys. Because let me tell you something, spanking has been the subject in every single talk show. About 9 months ago, a video in Florida showed a Florida principal striking a 6-year-old girl with the paddle. Now, this principal might have been placed on leave. So let's take a look at the Florida principal who spanked that 6-year-old.
This disturbing video of a 6-year-old's punishment at school has led to calls for an arrest. That's Clewiston, Florida school principal Melissa Carter striking the little girl with a wooden paddle because she had allegedly scratched a school computer. In the video, you can hear the principal chastising the child.
You better be glad you're not my daughter, because I would spank your butt all the time for acting like that. And I wish you would try to call the police on me. That's called being a brat.
Carter's assistant, Cecilia Self, also seen in the video, tells the little girl how to stand.
Put your butt out.
And then 3 whacks from the principal, the girl crying and moving after the first. But then instructed to get back in position. The incident happened in April when the first grader's mother asked to come to the school to pay $50 for the damage to the computer. That's according to her lawyer, who says the mother does not speak English.
She said to me, when this happened, I absolutely froze in fear. They have fears of deportation. I think the other part of it was that she didn't know what the principal was allowed to do.
This was
Corporal
during COVID.
punishment is legal in 19 states, including here in Florida, but not allowed in Hendry County School District, where this incident took place. ABC News confirming the state's attorney is reviewing the incident involving Principal Carter as part of an active investigation by police.
If your mom wants to come up to the school and spank you, and we can watch, that's gonna happen. Do you understand me?
Well, the Department of Children and Families and the school district are also investigating this incident. In the newsroom, Alexis Frazier, Local 10 News.
And I don't approve corporal punishment in our schools because, for one, it's horrible, and number two,
to another shocking story. This one up.
and two, it's just not right to. It's not right to spank somebody. Period. There's no if. There's no and. There's no but. Now this was years ago. So let's take a look at an incident that happened back in 2012, almost 10 years ago.
Now to another shocking story, this one out of Texas. A mother there is outraged after her teenage daughter was spanked with a paddle at school for cheating. But guess what? She's not mad about the actual punishment. She gave the school permission to do it. It's the person who swung the paddle that she has a problem with. ABC's Ryan Owens has the story.
Taylor Santos is a sophomore with good grades at this high school north of Fort Worth, Texas. But after she got caught helping another student cheat, Taylor got a paddle to the backside.
I still have whelps on me today.
Taylor and her mother actually chose corporal punishment over a day-long suspension. They're not outraged she was spanked, but by who did it? Her male vice principal.
Men are too big and strong to be hitting 96-pound girls.
Jada Watt is a year ahead of Taylor at Springtown High. She admits she smarted off to the same male vice principal with the same result.
A swat is a swat. Yes, it is. And they do sting. But to bruise a child?
Texas is one of 19 states that allows corporal punishment in schools, usually as long as a parent agrees. The school superintendent tells ABC News in both cases his administrators followed Texas law, but they violated their own school policy, which states spanking a student can only be done by an employee of the same sex. Jada says not only was she paddled by a male vice principal, it was observed by a male police officer.
2 men giving her a swat behind closed doors? It is creepy.
Tonight, school officials actually plan to ask the board to change that same-sex policy. These moms will fight that, saying their daughters are proof men should not hit women under any circumstances. For Good Morning America, Ryan Owens, ABC News, Springtown, Texas.
And when we come back here, the same story from News 8. Stay with us. So, if you're just joining us, we're talking about corporal punishment in our schools. I did a whole segment on Cut Me a Break before the change about a month ago on talking about a lot of spanking, gave you my opinion, but it's probably the same thing now. Before the break, we told you about a Texas girl who years ago was swatted by a male vice principal. The twist of this is that it was a male principal and a police officer who observed. Now let's hear from News 8, the other side of the story.
A student and a talented athlete spanked at school. This happened in Springtown, northwest of Fort Worth. Now, the punishment is not against district policy, but who administered it is. And tonight, the family is questioning how much force he used. Channel 8's Teresa Woodard reports.
A top sophomore at Springtown High School.
I think she had a 97.8 GPA overall in high school for her first year.
Taylor Santos says she didn't know a classmate cheated off of her, but the school sent both girls to in-school suspension. After day 1, Taylor requested a spanking instead of going back for day 2. The school called her mom. Mom approved and then quickly disapproved when she saw the results.
And it was bright red, like bad. It looked almost as if it had been burned and blistered. It was so bad.
And learned who held the paddle.
I came unglued.
A woman was in the room, but a man swatted Taylor, even though district policy clearly states corporal punishment can only be administered by an employee who is the same sex as the student.
I still have whelps on me today.
Taylor and her mother showed me photos we cannot show on air. Her bottom was red, and there were visible welts.
he used too much force.
Springtown superintendent said the school might have made an error, but we've learned the superintendent is now suggesting the rules need to be changed to allow for what happened. He proposes getting rid of that same-sex policy because the makeup of some campus staffs makes it too difficult to follow.
I think Taylor's proof that we need to keep that policy, because I don't believe a man intentionally meant to do that to her, but it still happens because men are too big and strong to be hitting 96-pound girls.
Springtown superintendent turned down our offer for an on-camera interview. He did stress corporal punishment is only administered after a parent requests it and when 2 adults are present in the room. The school board will discuss these potential changes Monday, and Taylor's mom says she'll be there. Live in Fort Worth, Teresa Woodard, Channel 8 News.
You know, Texas is one of 20 states that still allow corporal punishment in schools. In North Texas, the big districts like Dallas and Fort Worth ISDs, they have policies against it, but others, including Everman, White Settlement, and Springtown, they still allow paddling.
The only reason why I upload this video is just to share with you guys, but it is going to be deleted right now. And I'm like, no, I want to watch it. Okay, but you're gonna have only today to watch it. After that, it's gone. Because I don't want the family coming on to me saying, how dare you upload it. But if they comment on me and they comment saying that thanks for posting this, then I'm going to say you're welcome. Because this is a message out there from years ago. You can't, no male should spank a female student that violates the same-sex policy. If that did happen, you can't make a change. It's either this: fix it, apologize to the parents, say this will never happen again, or suspend the vice principal. I bet that person who did it, I don't know who the vice principal was at that time, but he needs to learn a lesson. That's too much force for someone. It's like if a female administrator spanked me too hard, I came home with welts and bruises. Then I would probably do the same thing this girl did. But changes have to be made. You can't make some changes, then it's probably your choice to make. So it confuses the student and it teaches the student nothing. Discipline in schools is about teaching the child what's right and wrong. It's not about hitting. And in the case of that 6-year-old in Florida, she never requested that spanking. If she requested that spanking, the mom would have approved of this, and she would have never been fired. But she had to go the other way around. I don't know if she left. Mind you, this was back in May. This was during the pandemic. And at that time, either Melissa Carter was fired or was placed on administrative leave. We probably don't know. We'll eventually get to this case. Look at this case a little harder. We're going to turn next when we come back, when we return to a 13-year-old student, 11 or 13-year-old who was placed in juvie 11 days because of a threat that she said she didn't do. But there's a twist to this story. When we return, we'll tell you. As you guys know, this season I've been doing issues in our schools because it is our 5th season. And when you're 5 years old or 6 years old, you start school. But the issue doesn't go away with these threats. December 17th was the day that TikTok decided to do a challenge to post school threats, and it has become a national epidemic. Throughout the past months, we brought you a lot of stories about people who've threatened our schools. Sometimes it targets the school board, it targets the teachers, it targets the schools, and social media is to blame. But tonight, this is the first. This is the first. In November, a 13-year-old was arrested and detained over a school threat. But the good news is, there was some good news. They found the person who was arrested. They found the person who did it, and they found the person and person in jail. But this 13-year-old was in juvenile detention center for 11 days. According to the Washington Post, November 29th was the day that she was released. Williams says she's trying to move past her time in juvenile detention center. Her attorney told Martin Parker to reporters an older girl at the faculty once threatened to stab Wims over a piece of chocolate. And now there was a lawsuit filed. A lawsuit was filed on Tuesday by the family. The older girl made a fake Instagram account using Wims' name and utilized the imposter profile to send herself pictures. But Conley Mellon, spokesman of the school, declined to comment on the lawsuit beyond saying that school officials take all appropriate action to ensure students' staff member safety. But the police spokesman also declined to respond to the lawsuit beyond the department's news release about the incident. And Meta, which is also the parent corporation of Facebook and WhatsApp, did not respond to a message. We still don't know. We don't know. But before the arrest, she's been a student at Renaissance for several years and has been physically and verbally bullied. But on November 18th, the lawsuit says MS impersonated Williams and sent messages threatening to kill people, including MS and a teacher. The teacher found out the messages and told school officials and police, sending the school onto lockdown before the police determined there was no true threat. But they told the police that Williams had sent the message herself. The lawsuit says the police went to Williams' home. Williams acknowledged that he had been exchanging Instagram messages with the other girl, but denied making the threats. But the officers arrested Williams on the charge of threatening to cause bodily harm or commit an act of terrorism. But it wasn't over. She missed Thanksgiving. The Williams threw away the school uniform as soon as she got home, Davis said, and she added her daughter was no longer wants to someday be a police officer because she feels she was treated so badly. The police wanted a report on the day of the arrest. Davis told her daughter to stop answering officers' questions. In a news release later, the police said Davis began to work with them on December 21st, when she provided information that led to subpoena the IP address associated with the threatening messages. But Davis and Porter said at a news conference they didn't know what the December 21st date references. They said on the day of the arrest, Davis gave officers the iPad where Wims had been using Instagram. But in the police report, officers gave a receipt for the seized iPad on December 21st. And that around the same time, Instagram gave them the IP addresses just used to send 30 messages. January 18th, this was a month later, the report says a subpoena internet provider Comcast revealed the IP address associated with the student's MS. Apparently used to make the threats. But after the investigation, police dropped the charges against Williams and instead charged MS for making threats to kill or cause bodily harm, falsifying a police report, and related charges. Who was that person? This is what the police report says. It was a 12-year-old female student. But there's more to the article. And there was more from USA Today. A 12-year-old student was arrested and charged with making threats. Investigators obtained new evidence about the IP address associated with the messages January, according to the police department. And according to the police report, 6 pages of it, it was a 12-year-old who did it. But the attorney told USA Today the family also intends to include the department in a lawsuit. So we have the school, the police department, and Instagram in this. I think I remember they're asking for $30,000. That's what I remember. That's very good news. Next, there was a mom on a school bus. Now, this wasn't at a school building, it was on a school bus. This mother was charged after police said she entered her school bus and made threats. A mother at the Gateway School District elementary students faced charge after allegedly entering her daughter's school bus and making threats. The mother was named Jetta Northcutt. She's charged with simple assault, terrorist offense, and other offenses. She did not respond to Channel 11 for comment, but the door was slammed in her face. But according to a criminal complaint on the morning of January 27th, Northcutt entered her daughter's school bus at the corner of Garden City and Sunnyfields Drive. She said, "Who was fighting? Who gets smart with me? I hate kids. I'll come back there and smack the blank out of you. I'll meet you at the school." According to the court documents, Northcutt named one student specifically. The child and her daughter has been reportedly having issues. And the Northcutt's child is allegedly, in one case, attacked the other girl in the exited bus. Both incidents were allegedly caught on camera, and the video was provided to police from officials at Evergreen Elementary School. But the neighbors said the report was disturbing. But as for Northcutt, she's due in early April, for a preliminary hearing. So the teens now learn more via cyberschooling, but the resident said the situation not shocking that she pulled her teenagers out of the Gateway High School after bullying. And just 14 hours ago in Boston, there was a threat. Someone made a threat saying he would burn the school down legally. Mark Polyphone is facing charges, and his son was expelled from the community school in Florida after he allegedly texted a group of parents that he wanted to burn down the school over its mask policy. He said, "No more masks. Hayu. You should have told off that board member to go blank yourself. If we will leave and burn Hill down to the ground, that's why their rankings have steadily gone down." What's his name? Board member. He was arrested and charged. He threatened to burn down his son's private school. And 2 days later, the same group said, "I just got kicked out of high level. Burn the school down." He was banned from school property, and his son was expelled after a parent shared his comments. But in the interview, Polycott said he used the word burn was taken out of context. "I legally said I wanted to burn the school in the sense of filing a lawsuit. I have my attorney preparing legal documents. I regret the words I said. I regret using those words." In a statement, the head of the school said, "Our schools hold security as a cornerstone institution. We take any threat very seriously and allow guidelines, including reporting any such threats to the police. We have 0 tolerance for aggressive, violent language." But he's pleaded not guilty to the charges of writing threats to kill or bodily harm, which carries a penalty 15 years in prison, 15 years probation, and $10,000 fines. I mean, this person right here said, out of context, he meant burn. He meant he was going to sue the school district. His attorney is now working with it, but it's not the same thing as saying you will burn down a school like with a fire and lighter fluid. It's different. Very different. I'll be back in a moment. On Give Me a Break Saturday, an extended interview with the Oxford school shooting victim, Tate Murray's father. The worst day of our lives. We're gonna hear from the father of Tate Murray. This is the very first time that this father spoke out. And we're going to hear from this father. You may be surprised to what this father has to say. In other words, we're going to hear his side of the story. Look for that on Saturday. That's all for the second half of Give Me a Break Friday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Saturday night. For all of us here at YouTube, good night.